Good to see the Glitchtastic is finally able to recover from all of the shortcomings he's had again, 5th, 10th, and then getting knocked out. So not even able to make it into the final 10th, but really nice to see Glitchtastic has a very clear mind, very positive mind, moving in, and now because of that, getting into the final 10.
And that's exactly why I was talking about how I was thinking Zero was going to be able to take that qualifier down, just because of the last few previous weeks that Glitchtastic has had, like you said, 5th, 10th, and getting knocked out. Just kind of showcased that he was, falling behind a little bit and slipping behind in some of his qualifying rounds. So that's why it was expecting Zero, because he seemed to be playing a lot better in recent qualifying rounds. So I was expecting Zero to take that one down, but it was a good finish for Glitchtastic to be able to take that down, because now he knows going into the final 10, he will secure that 10th, or at least a 10th place finish, and probably do better than before, because like you said, having that positive mental attitude will definitely increase your skill.
It really will. And speaking of skill, the only way to get better at Mario Kart here on stage is to be on the stage. So we're going to go down to qualifier number 5 here and get it started. I am very excited to see how this qualifier is going to be turning out. Let's go. Let's go ahead and read out the names. Troy, take it away.
So we do have the likes of Kingpin, followed by Callista. We also have a Yoshi coming in, Moon Cow. Our ranked players are going to be Kai Red, Terabyte, and Geronimo. So 3 insanely good ranked players in this last qualifier as well. We have a Miss Latree following in shortly behind. Rise is going to be there, and we will see, as these players unfold and as these games unfold, this is going to be a lot of action. We know Kai Red is very, very good in his races, very, very skilled and very good at controlling his loadout and controlling his cart. So we'll see him move forward. We know Terabyte is extremely consistent at trying to get back into the final 10 week after week. We know he's had some insanely good weeks and been able to take first place, but has, dropped down a few spots as well in other weeks. So we know Terabyte at least is very consistent in trying to get into that top 10. So we're going to probably see him try and take that back. We saw Geronimo have one of his best weeks ever a couple weeks ago, but unfortunately still couldn't make it out of the first place in his qualifier and then dropped out of the wild card. So this is definitely a week where Geronimo has a lot of vengeance and revenge in his head, and he wants to try and prove his ability here in this qualifier.
Absolutely, and I think Kai Red is really going to give us a huge upset potentially against Geronimo and Terabyte. He has done some tremendous racing, keeping himself consistent week after week, but Geronimo, man, really recovering from all of the shortcomings he's had. And speaking of recovery, you have recovered another fact off the internet about quick facts that you would love to share.
I do have my 5th and final fact, of course, for qualifier number 5. So did you know the Twitter bird is actually named Larry, and it's named that from the Hall of Famer basketball player Larry Bird, because the inventor of Twitter was a huge fan of him.
Did not know that.
Yeah, so now you know, if you ever see the Twitter bird, its name is Larry. It's not that fun of a name, but it's just named Larry.
Oh man, it's like one of those facts when you look back to your childhood and it blows your mind and you're like, I can't see it the same way ever again.
Exactly. I mean, that's how I look at it. I mean, 7% of adults, believe in chocolate milk comes from brown cows. You're going to blow their mind sometimes once you end up telling them that, no, that actually don't come from brown cows. But we will see these qualifier 5 action come out, and we will see, of course, more Nintendo history coming out from Jake later on as well. I have to get some more facts for the qualifier. The wild card in the final 10, I completely skipped out on those, so I'll have to make sure I get even better facts for those.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to go ahead and throw off a quick fact while these players are getting ready. We have them currently choosing the maps right now. Again, they are random. So back, I had just told you about the fact that Nintendo, after moving into the new medium, they really wanted to hit the market in the United States, so they started printing Disney cards. Well, because that was so successful, they started doing very well up until about the 1970s when Nintendo started plunging. Nobody wanted Disney cards, and their stock went from 900 to 65 yen, so it was extremely short. They lost about 90% of their stock, and they said, we need to start diversifying, we need to find something new, and we need to make it happen. So in the 1970s, they started seeing the boom of video games, and they started looking into it, and that's actually where they started securing their rights as the first distributor of American video games for the Magnavox Odyssey, which was actually the world's first commercial home video game console released in 1970s.
That was like 70 fun facts in one fun fact. So I gotta kick my game into gear, I guess, because that was a lot of very, very interesting notes, and Nintendo's a very, very cool company, very cool, inclusive company. Especially they want all that nostalgia to come back into their games as well, which is something pretty much only Nintendo does. If I'm aware, they are one of the only companies that really brings other games into their original games, and tries to bring back that nostalgia going forward into even just maps like Mario Kart, or some small features in the backgrounds of just Mario Brothers and stuff like that. So it's really cool. Obviously, the new Super Smash Bros. Has characters from everything that has been in the past of Super Smash and Nintendo in general. So it's a lot of fun to see a company like that kind of be inclusive of everything.
And I really don't see any problem with that because Nintendo is recycling items that they've used before because it caters to the older generations while also bringing in the newer generation. So I personally don't see a problem with that. To me, it means that they're really locking into not just the younger generation, which they were doing back when video games started to really be a thing, and then they decided to actually diversify, and now they're really hitting the largest market. And when you think of video games, you really think of everybody, and you think of Nintendo as the video game system of choice.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, Nintendo is like the #1 thing if you were to think about a gaming company, or if you ask someone in general, be like, who's your favorite gaming company? They'd probably be like, well, I can't think of any, but Nintendo's probably up there. So Nintendo is always, one of those featured, games. And obviously, like I said earlier, they have some of the best games of, generations to come moving forward. I mean, they've pretty much for every generation that has come out has made a game specific for that generation and has made it so good that people are like still playing it, to this day, like the likes of Super Mario Brothers, like the likes of the original Super Smash Bros. And stuff like that, something like N64 games, or people are still having a great time on. So it's really cool to see Nintendo be that inclusive and kind of bringing that all back in.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, real quick before we get them started right now, looks like Terabyte doing a little quick meditation before he does get things going. So when Nintendo decided to show an interest in video games and started distributing video games, they started developing their own. But here's the problem. The problem was when they started developing their games like EVR Race and Donkey Kong, when they started designing their own consoles, but this is back when Shigeru Miyamoto, back in the early 70s, came in and was breaking the industry for video games. They started developing handhelds and testing consoles, and they were absolutely busted. 100%. Nintendo's first successful console wasn't until the Nintendo Entertainment System. It took them 3 years to develop because the chips were catching fire and dying beforehand.
I heard that something was a problem with GameCube too, right?
Yes.
I believe that they had too much memory or something. They had too much graphic-intensive things in the GameCubes to where they were actually catching fire, and they had to recall them and had to fix that up. So Nintendo has a little bit too much power back then, and they had to try and put it down into something like the GameCube. But now they're definitely more inclusive of everything, and they have
they have the Nintendo Switch now, guys. I mean,
exactly.
they literally have this. I mean, they literally have one of the most powerful handheld consoles of all time, and it is incredible. It really is.
I was gonna say it's really, really impressive how much they've been able to develop the kind of mobile gaming kind of console industry to move forward. I mean, obviously, we've had the likes of Game Boy Advance, Game Boys, DSs, all of these kind of things that, brought that mobile gaming into a sense of, I can play this anywhere. I can do this without Wi-Fi. You don't need Wi-Fi for anything. And then now they bring out something like the Nintendo Switch, where they're bringing back something like Legend of Zelda to bring out on it. You're having the likes of Super Smash Brothers on it, having a lot of very cool, fun feature games like Pokemon Let's Go. So, they have some very cool developments and are definitely trying to push things forward as they go through with their development.
Yep, and real quick, before we do get back into this qualifier, I wanted to give an actual fun fact, and they're actually going to be starting right now, so very excited. They're going to be getting their random messages going, or their random maps placed right now. So real quick before they do, did you know that there was actually the great video game crash of 1983?
No, I did not. What does that even mean?
So I'll tell you about that in a second. Remind me after this race. But we're going to go over here to, again, the hashtag NotMyRainbowRoad, and we're going to actually see one of our first baby characters being used right now, and actually not doing too bad about holding onto the red zone. This is actually surprising. We actually have a character utilizing a baby character for that increase in acceleration, a little bit less top speed, and that's going to be our boy Terabyte right now, who is actually utilizing the baby Peach for the first time, if I'm not mistaken, and we do see Geronimo classically using a Shy Guy, just a different color.
Yeah, so this is something Geronimo changes up every week, is the color of his Shy Guy as he moves forward. This is going to be a different player than we're used to seeing. I believe that actually is Kyret currently sitting in that first place. So it looks like everyone is actually changing up their current loadout so far. Everyone's trying to change it up. As you see, this crazy battle for first ensues going into the second lap here, as Kyret is currently holding onto a defensive banana, but we know there's 2 shells in the likes of Terabyte's hands, so probably wants to try and connect with the green shell first and get the red shell coming after, but we'll just hold on to it defensively. Obviously, having 2 defensive shells will put you in a great spot as it blocks 1 item. So
one of the things I wanted to bring up, if you notice, the acceleration during that drift maneuver that Terabyte had was extremely good, and it was actually catching up to our Roy character, but as soon as he lost that acceleration, the top speed of Roy was really pushing our boy Kyret forward, and that just shows how heavies really can be favorable in certain instances, because that top speed will really keep you going forward forward at that point. You just have a less acceleration, but that top speed really plays a serious factor moving into these battles for first or second. And we're going to look over at this this white character, this white Yoshi, who is currently in fourth. And our boy Terabyte unfortunately falls from first. He might end up losing it to another character. Actually had a decent lead so far, barely holding on. Our boy Kyret now coming up here, and we do see Geronimo now holding on to third, has a bullet bill. I'm surprised that the item manipulation has been extremely wonky today.
It definitely seems like it's been something according to this map too, because this is the same map that we saw earlier where the player got a star in second, and we saw Jotaro in third with the crazy 8, and they're seeing the likes of a bullet bill and triple mushroom in third place. So maybe it's just something to do with this Rainbow Roadmap, and it's just something that wants you to always have a chance in, I guess. But unfortunately, Geronimo not going to control that drift there, and will fly down at the end of that map as Terabyte has an insanely good lead so far, and this white Yoshi is trying to get himself back into the top 3. But look at this lead from Terabyte. This is absolutely drastic. Something I wanted to talk about earlier as well is I love watching Kyret play, because he's so emotional when he plays. You can definitely tell whenever he gets hit by an item, whenever anything happens to him, you can definitely tell it's showing on his face, and it's super fun to watch him because you can definitely see the tilt or the cool plays coming out.
But it's kind of hidden because he's kind of slouching in his chair. He's like really relaxed in himself. He's just wanting to race and do the best he can. And then, like you said, as soon as the items come out or he's in a disadvantageous position, it immediately shows. It's kind of like that hidden anger and terror that you even yourself want to have. Just as the end of it happens, we do have Terabyte securing first place with a 2:23 first place track time. That's just to give you perspective again, an average about 2 seconds just below our average time. So they are racing a little bit quicker than average right now.
And I actually believe that was a slower track time than the first time we saw that map in the last qualifier. So they're racing a little bit slower in that round, but just by a couple seconds. So there's nothing to fear right there, as it looks like Terabyte was easily able to take that first place down. We saw Geronimo fall a few times there on that map, so he's open to look to control everything as they go into race number 2. Of course, you don't ever doubt yourself. There's always time to improve and to get yourself back up into the top 3 spots. Once you get there, I mean, you can drop down in 10th place in the first race and then get first place in the next 3 and still have a great chance.
Yeah, we've actually seen that happen before. We've also seen people get first place like Geronimo. Geronimo did a great job, had I believe a first, a second, a first, and then ended up getting a 9th and then dropped to 2nd place and did not make the qualifier because of that. So that really says consistency on these races are absolutely key if you want to make placements in the final 10.
Yeah, it's very, very true, and we're going into the second race here of qualifier number 5. It is going to be Grumble Volcano, so we are going to see how this unfolds for these players as we're going to go, I believe, over to Kyret. He's currently sitting on that blue Yoshi. Normally is what his preferred loadout is. I believe he did change that up for the first race, but might have changed that back up for this second race here. Don't know if this is Kyret or not. It's actually going to be Calista instead, so this is not going to be Kyret, currently sitting on blue Yoshi, so he's going to keep with his changed loadout so far, and we're going to see how he moves forward in this race here in qualifier number 5. Of course, going into the second race here, we will see some very, very close competition, as well as Geronimo getting those triple green shells. Will try and connect with those or use those defensively. Does connect with the player gliding down. Nicely done from him to connect with Terabyte as he lands from that ramp. Nicely done from Geronimo to use his items very effectively there.
So to give you a perspective on utilizing green shells effectively, accuracy with green shells is absolutely dependent on the angle in which you're throwing it. There is no homing devices just like a red shell would have. So these players are hitting green shells with so much accuracy, it's almost like it's a red shell, but there's literally 0% accuracy in these things unless you are lining them up the way that you do. So the fact that these players are consistently doing it over and over and over again, that shows absolute skill in this game. And you would never think to yourself that this game could be esports, but we say it week after week. It is absolutely crucial. And we're looking over at Terabyte right now, currently sitting in 3rd place, going to be flying over the lava pit in order to try to secure a good solid position. He does barely manage to make it. Geronimo now sitting in 2nd, not doing too bad. Looks like Kyret is going to be able to walk away from the blue shell. Doesn't, unfortunately, and falls over and he is throwing that emotion. He's very upset about it, and he is losing a lot of that lead. And it looks like we have Terabyte right now jockeying for position, taking away that distance between himself and Kyret, and now Geronimo now fighting for 2nd place as well.
Yeah, Geronimo's going to try and take that 2nd place back, of course, as Terabyte currently sitting with a red shell defensively is maybe going to use that offensively, and will, as he saw there was no item there on Kyret, so he was not able to use that item defensively, and will move forward with this one. Has a bomb and a horn, so not the best of items for himself in 2nd place here. It's kind of an awkward item set to get through out of this one, but he will hold on to that horn, maybe try and connect with being very, very close to Kyret there in 1st place to see if he's able to connect with that, as Geronimo with the exact same item loadout as well. Going to probably try to connect with a bomb here shortly, as Kyret is going to be moving in at the last turn here and going into that 1st place spot. It looks like Kyret is able to take that first place down. Nicely done for himself. And it looks like actually Terabyte able to take that second place away from the likes of Geronimo there in third place.
So our first, second, and third place position have been secured every race thus far, and it looks like they're battling it out. Again, I really said Kyret has an absolute possibility, especially with that 214. I believe the average on that one is 217. So really, again, keeping himself above average, he needed that in order to keep his confidence going. But you saw the emotion when he got hit by the blue shell and then fell into a pit. First off, I'm sorry, it was kind of funny to watch.
Yeah, that's why I love watching Kyret so much. He shows everything like it's right on his face. I mean, as soon as he gets hit by something, as soon as he gets really hyped about something, you will see it immediately. You'll see that reaction as soon as it happens. So that's why I enjoy watching Kyret's race so much, is because he's very apparent on how he's feeling during the race. So it's really fun to watch, and you can see the tilt coming out a little bit. Obviously, Mario Kart is a fairly tilting game. Once you are in a solid first place spot and you suddenly get blue shelled into 2 red shells right after it, and you're slowly losing spots, it can definitely be very tilting.
I felt it, and I don't want to talk about it.
Something deep down, huh?
Yeah, that brought back the Wario's gold mine and falling a lot because I was getting hit by items. And then, yeah, it was just a bad loadout. It was a bad match, but I got second, so that's okay.
Yeah, we need to see the highlight reel of
no, we don't.
Jake Parker.
No, we don't.
The hijinks of
No,
Jake
we
Parker.
do not need to see the hijinks of Jake Parker. We're just going to look over here at the airport right now, and it is not – I don't know why I keep getting the airport and Mario Kart Stadium mixed up, and I'm glad I've fixed that over the last couple of weeks, but I keep getting those two matches or those two maps mixed up for some reason. I don't know why, because they're nothing like each other.
Yeah, definitely, kind of looks similar at the beginning, but now you can see that little glass window with the airplane right of it, so it should be a lot easier now to tell. I couldn't tell a difference either, but now it's getting a lot more apparent to me as we go and see the map a lot more. But currently sitting in second place is going to be Geronimo as the yellow shy guy, and in first is going to be Kyret, currently sitting in that first place spot. So the top 3 are going to be very, very close to each other, as we're very used to expecting from these top 3 so far. These 3 ranked players, Terabyte, Kyret, and Geronimo, going to be holding the top 3 again. It seems like this has been a consistent factor in these first 3 races here so far, Jake, and it definitely seems like they're used to being in this kind of situation of pressure. Obviously, that is why they're ranked.
And one of the things I wanted to bring up was Terabyte. Terabyte is, again, using a new character that we've normally never seen him use, and you can definitely tell because we've seen a lot more running into the walls or just running off the track in general. Probably one of those things where he's thinking to himself, I'm going to practice this, and I'm doing very well, but I need to challenge myself. And we are seeing a lot more, I would say, I'm not going to say mistakes, but correctable opportunities that we would normally never see if Terabyte was using the traditional loadout that he normally uses.
Yeah, he's definitely very used to the, I believe, raced as Peach most of the time, so he's going to be using the Baby Peach version instead. Obviously, the Baby versions will have a lot faster of acceleration, but will lose that top speed performance that they're used to having. So a lot of the I would say better players here at the arena race with the heavyweight characters and the heavyweight setups because it's a lot easier to maintain that top speed. Unfortunately, that boomerang not connecting for Geronimo, as that is going to be Kyret slowly taking that turn right there. Looks like Terabyte actually able to take that first place spot so far, as Kyret throws a red shell trying to connect with Terabyte. Will do so, but it only connects with a defensive item from the back of Terabyte, as we see Geronimo with 2 more mushrooms is going to use one of them on that turn, and probably another one here shortly. Gets a green shell, so not the best of items moving forward, but is going to at least hold that defensively, as we see the rest of the group is very, very far away from this top 3.
Absolutely, and just real quick, while we are leading into the end of the final lap here, Kyret and Terabyte are both tied for first place with 22 points, with Geronimo trailing at 15.4. So this is going to be absolutely crucial. Geronimo needs to continue to hold on to this third place if he's going to continue getting the points he needs to place himself in the wild card, which, just like you had said before, 29 is the cutoff. So if we have even one player that gets over 29 points here, which is absolutely going to be the case, then we are going to see people like insert name here and Precious who are going to get knocked out. And this race was a 2:14. That is absolutely crucial because this is one of those races that 2:22 is the average. That is a shave of almost 9 seconds.
Yeah, nicely done from this group. Of course, as we saw, Kyret was tried to get a quick mushroom boost at the end of that one to get that shortcut back into first place from Terabyte, but Terabyte, nicely enough, was still able to keep that consistency going into that last lap, and was able to take first place again. So Terabyte going into this last race here will have a small lead against the likes of Terabyte, or against the likes of Kyret. So having that few point lead is going to be crucial, because even if Kyret gets first place and Terabyte gets that second place, Actually, I think they would tie if they ended up switching spots again, because they were tied going into this one, and we got first and second respectively. If they switched it up again for the Force Wraith, I think they would end up tying actually for first place at the end of this.
That would absolutely be the case, and this is going to be a make or break factor. This is going to be the Super Nintendo version of Rainbow Road. Now, with that being said, we have seen all of the Rainbow Roads this week. Talk about diversifying maps. We normally see a lot more repeat maps, and this is the week where we've seen a lot more brand new maps going forward, and I'm very happy that Rainbow Road is really making its appearance here for all of the different versions that we've seen. And this is a really good chance for Geronimo now in the second place to really walk away with a victory, very much needed if he wants to secure himself in the wild card right now.
And I definitely want to say this is probably the most difficult Rainbow Road out of the whole group, because there are no side barriers at all. There are obviously the thwomps in the path of your way, and there's a whole ton of room for error here, as every corner is very tight, and there is nothing stopping you from falling. So you have to be very, very careful maneuvering around this Rainbow Road map, and it's definitely one of the more difficult Rainbow Road maps in the game. So we'll see as these players progress. Hopefully they're able to dodge out on some of those. Obviously you get the speed boost from when the thwomps hit the ground. You get that little jump boost off right here, as you would see. Geronimo would be able to take that one down, but currently sitting in first place. Geronimo doing himself a very good favor here, as we see Kyret in second place with the red shell. Terabyte taking that corner very swiftly, is going to use a mushroom boost here to barely get over that, as we saw him kind of glitch that way through there. And we're seeing now Terabyte trying to get back in the top two spots here, as Kyret and Geronimo are insanely close to each other, and that red shell is going to be coming out, but luckily Kyret has a defensive item in case that goes to connect.
So I wanted to bring up a little bit of point about Terabyte's jump that he just did right now. That jump is absolutely pointless. The way that angle is, if you're going to take a look at it right now, is we're going to see these players almost, by the way, hitting another player. It looks like Geronimo with that green shell. If you look at this jump right now, that jump really doesn't do anything. You might get a little bit of a speed boost at the end, but your speed boost is going to be putting you literally in the beginning of a turn. There's really no room for error there, and even if you do manage to get the jump, you don't really have a lot of opportunity, because you got to get yourself into a drift immediately. You're better off just going left or right and using a boost item at that point.
So I think Kyret with this first place finish is actually able to take the first place out of this qualifier, considering a Terabyte drop down to third place right there instead of getting second place. I believe that means Kyret barely edges this one out by maybe a point or two at the very end of this all. So as we get the points totaled up, we will see how everything does unfold, of course. But that small switch up at the end in race number 4, just that general couple of points lost here and there between the races, is going to completely affect you at the end of your qualifier. And we'll obviously see who was able to take down that 5th and final place here out of the qualifying rounds, and we'll see who gets into that final 10 spot.
And I'm also excited to see if Geronimo is going to be able to get at least 30 points here, and he is going to do it. He got 33, so that's going to put him into the qualifier, so he will have a chance to, again, get at least one of the top 5s in the wild card to be able to get himself into the final 10. So he does have a chance to recover here. Great positions and great plays by all 3 of our ranked players being able to recover, and I got to also give it to a couple of our other players just having a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, Kyret, it looks like, was able to officially take that one down, so he will be the 5th and final player out of the qualifying rounds to get himself into that secured final 10 spots. So we do have Cherry, Marshall, Flash, Glitchtastic, and Kyret finishing off those 5 first place out of the qualifying rounds. Now we go into the wild card after all this, which is going to be 6 races instead of the normal 4, and is going to be a lot of tight-knit racing. I mean, the wildcard round is one of my favorites to watch, because this is do or die for a lot of these players just to get into the final 10. So a lot of them are going to be trying their best strats and trying to do their absolute best in item manipulation and everything to try and secure that final 10 spot.
Yeah, same here. Wildcards, I got to say, wildcards are a lot more aggressive than the final 10, because when you're in the final 10, you're already guaranteed a payout. So really at that point, you're just trying to guarantee a bigger payout. But for the wildcards, you're trying to get back into that moment. So you really have to play with your best. And yes, you only need a top 5 at that point.
Right.
So that really is a make or break. You at least need to get the top 5 if you want to secure yourself moving forward.
Of course, we do have Josh there with an interview down on the floor, so we'll go ahead and send it on over to Josh. Take it away.
Everybody, I'm here with an extremely special guest, Olivia Goodrow. She suffers from Lyme disease. She has created a foundation, and I would love you to tell us a little bit about that.
So I have had chronic Lyme disease for 7 years now. And since I've had Lyme disease, I have started a foundation, and it's called the Live Lyme Foundation, and it helps kids that cannot afford their Lyme disease medication, since most families cannot do that, and it also helps scientists find research for a cure for Lyme disease.
That's awesome. How much money has your foundation raised? What kind of people have you met? What kind of advice would you give to people who have Lyme disease?
So over the last 20 months, my foundation has raised over $1 million.
That's awesome.
Thank you. The celebrities that I met are Imagine Dragons. I did the Lime Challenge with them.
That's so cool.
The cast of Modern Family gave me a shout out. Mark Hamill, who was Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, he gave me a shout out as well. And I also got to go see Daryl Hall backstage. He's an artist as well.
All of that stuff is so cool. Great work. I can't believe how incredible this is. I just want everyone to know, how old are you, by the way?
I'm 14.
14, and you've done all of that?
Yes.
I hope this is a pretty clear indication that doesn't matter how old you are, who you are, you could always make a difference in the world. And Olivia Goodrow, I can't believe the kind of work you did. You're awesome. Thank you. And I'm going to send it back to the studio.